Okay. So welcome everybody to our September 27th, 2022 CAPPO meeting. It is now 10:07. So I think the first thing on the agenda is just to approve the meeting minutes from our July CAPPO meeting. So if I could, I believe everybody's muted at the moment, so if I could just entertain the motion to accept the meeting minutes. Anyone?
Hi, Jen. Are you looking for a second? I can second the motion.
Actually, making the motion. Sorry.
Okay, yes.
Amber,
Please
okay,
move
thank you.
forward with a motion to approve the minutes. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Everyone's muted, so might have to. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, you can either just say aye or say aye in the chat. That's fine. Usually there's never too much of a discussion. Great. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. All right, so the meeting minutes from our July 26, 2022 has. So I'm going to immediately start with our presentation, just because we've started a little bit later than I anticipated. So today we have Dr. John Warner. He is an archivist of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and he's going to be doing a presentation today that was actually done for our county departments internally a few months back, and I thought it was great. So I think it would be really advantageous for our CAPPO members to have him here today. So, but it's on public record retention. John, you should be able to unmute when you get a chance.
Good morning.
Great. Good morning. And then if you need assistance.
Hear me okay?
Yep. Sound good.
Very good. My name is John Warner. I'm the state archivist. On behalf of Secretary of State Bill Galvin, it's my pleasure and honor to be here to talk about public records and destruction of same. I'm going to attempt to share the screen. And if this doesn't work out, hopefully I'll get an assist from Ms. Frades. But basically, people call me often here at the State Archives in Dorchester and ask me how do I find records retentions or information about records management. And the best way to do that is to go to the Secretary of State's website. Let's see. Now what I want to do is I want to share the Secretary of State's website. So best way to do that is to.
Have you shared your screen yet?
I'm trying.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I think it's coming. No.
No, that's not it. No. Here we are. Let's see. Oh, this isn't working out very well.
If you want, I can. Would it be easier if I kind of?
I think so.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. Okay. So what's the website?
The website, basically what you need to do is to put in the Massachusetts Secretary of State. So here I am back again.
No worries. Okay.
So if you search for Massachusetts Secretary of State, I can give you the URL, but basically there it is right there. Perfect. So we've overcome the first technical glitch.
No worries.
So you see lots of colored buttons and lots of links. The Massachusetts Archives is the second button from the left and the second row from the top. Looks like a stylized vault door. If you click through that, on the lower left-hand side of the page, at the bottom, it says records management. And if you can make that a little bit larger, everybody see that, records management? So you have municipal records, agency records, records management unit, the Records Conservation Board, and there's a number of, there are 3 PDFs. One of the questions I get fairly often is, can I scan my records and destroy the paper without needing permission of the supervisor? So to start at the beginning, county records fall under the municipal records retention schedule, not state records. They are not. If you click on the records management unit, you can see there's this whole separate link for state agency records, which are constitutional offices and executive agencies. So we'll stay in the municipal records, so you can, but before we do that, please click on the Born Digital and Digitized Records Frequently Asked Questions. And what this is gives you an idea basically what public records are. So as we are public employees, everything that we do, unless it's specifically exempt under the public records law, we have to consider to be public records. So this PDF talks about the scanning and destruction of paper records after the records have been digitized. So it's a good place to start if you're thinking about a scanning project or thinking about records which you have, which are so-called born digital. So I would recommend that you take a look at that if you are thinking about keeping records electronically or embarking on a scanning project. At the moment, municipal records custodians, a lot of the municipal records custodians who are scanning records have high volume of records which have long retentions. So things like building plans or police department records. Some of the retentions on those are permanent. Some of them are for a long time. So you have a case, say you arrest someone for assault. That case needs to be retained, case file needs to be retained until the case is adjudicated and all appeals have been exhausted. But you have to keep it to start for 11 years based on statute. So who's scanning records? Building departments, town clerks, police departments, basically many different departments of municipal government who have large volumes of records which have long retentions in general. Otherwise, people are creating records online, fiscal records and things like that. So if we come out of that, we can go to the municipal records retention schedule, which is at the top of the page. So actually the link goes to not only the PDF of the municipal records retention schedule, but also there's a database, which is not all that useful, frankly. There is a benefit in the database in that it has Massachusetts General Law chapter citations. So if you need to know kind of why, what the law says in terms of a record is permanent by statute, you can actually cite that if you need it. But it's a little bit difficult to work with. It's commercial off the shelf. It's a little clunky. And I would recommend that you instead start at the municipal schedule, which is a PDF. So this is what's known as, once you open that up, the municipal schedule, it's a quick guide, which is a little bit kind of a misnomer because it's, I don't know, 140 pages long or something along those lines. But you can see the different sections, and further down in the specific agency, specific sections, you have pretty much all the departments of municipal government. Now, procurement would be mostly handled by purchasing department, and also things like in records in common. So records in common, as the name implies, is basically records which are created and held by all departments. Look up the page, you can see under records in common, things like personnel, invoices, etc. So contracts are under records in common and things like that. So if you go to the top of the page, under records in common, you can see several record series, many record series, which are created by pretty much all departments. Okay, so if we can go into the quick guide and look, for instance, on, oh, there we go. Now we're in purchasing. So when I talk about record series, that's what that means. So 18.001, emergency procurement file, 7 years following final payment. You can all read it. Delegation of powers and duties. So if you go out of that and go up to the records in common, you have things which would be associated with procurement, which would be invoices, vouchers, contracts, etc. So that's how you get to the municipal schedule. So if you go to the beginning of the document, you can come to the records in common. There we are. So contracts, correspondence, etc. So people who are public officials, in some ways, you don't consider everything you do to be a public record, but that's pretty much what the law says. So if you look, for instance, at correspondence, which begins, let's see, if you go to the table of contents, correspondence begins on page 4.
Am I in the right location? Sorry.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
So over the years we've added record series, so they're kind of, they are somewhat loosely based on alphabetical, but they're not, 1, 2, 3 in some cases, because we've added record series at the end. So you can see it goes from 01.140. So these are contract files, and that's based on if you issue debt, if you bond it.
Mm-hmm.
Most contract files will not be, you're not going to issue a bond to pay for it. So you're going to be 01.018, which is 6 years, or the audit following the year of final payment. 6 years is on the statewide schedule. So, so correspondence, if you go down a little bit, you'll find that. There it is. So basically you have administrative convenience. So there are 4 record series: transitory messages, policy development, which is a 5-year record. Policy development would be something pretty serious. I mean, you're gonna change your accounting system or something like that. I'm not really sure. I mean, policy development would be a kind of a big deal. Most correspondence is general administrative, and of course, here we are in the electronic age, so correspondence would include electronic mail. So 3 years. Administrative convenience. So you'll see administrative use, permission from the supervisor not required for destruction. What that means concretely is that if the record series and description of the records is in the municipal records retention schedule, and it doesn't say that, doesn't say permission of the supervisor not required for destruction, the assumption is that you need to apply for destruction to the supervisor to destroy those records. So any questions about how to find the municipal records retention schedule, what the record series look like, so we can back out of that and go to the application for destruction on Form RMU2 under municipal forms. So the RMU2, so you see several forms there. So this starts at the top, and the best way to reach the records management unit is by email. The best way to send these in, you can fax them. It's 90s technology, which still exists. You could send it in by US Post to the address at the top, where I work at 220 Morrison Boulevard in Dorchester, or you can email it. So RMU Records Management Unit at sec.state.ma.us. So this would be your municipal entity, in this case, your county entity. Approximate volume of records proposed to be destroyed. That would also include, these days, megabytes or gigabytes, or I suppose even terabytes, which is, I think, a warehouse full of records, but you can include electronic records if you're destroying electronic records. So earlier in the talk, I discussed the scanning and destruction of electronic records, or destruction of the paper. That doesn't mean that once you get rid of the paper you don't have to, you can shred the paper, but the electronic records are still subject to public records law and to public records request. And you should destroy them rather than have them sort of sitting on your local area network. Because there is a cost associated, there are costs associated with keeping records past the retention. You say, well, you know, maybe it would be a good idea just in case to save these records. But if you're allowed to destroy them, even if they're in bits and bytes, even if they're electronic, why not go ahead and do it? There is, under the new public records law, the updated public records law, which is actually not that new, it dates to January of 2017, provision to accept electronic records, certainly, and the encouragement in the law that records be delivered electronically. But if you have a record series that says keep the records for 3 years, or after audit, which so much of physical records are, you have your annual audit, and then you can get rid of the records from once they're audited. Why would you hang around? Why would you keep them longer than that? Because someone could say, okay, I want to see every contract that you have going back to 2000. And if you have those electronically and have not availed yourself of this application for destruction, then you have to produce those. So location of the record, total approximate volume, like I said, those can be boxes, file drawers, megabytes, gigabytes. The location of the record. So these are all pretty much data points that help us to make sure that you kind of know what you're talking about. Now, people get a little wrapped around the axle on block 4, the last audit of accounts of this office. That's the town-wide audit or the county-wide audit done by outside auditors. We have, certainly we've gone through the last couple of years or so where people didn't have outside auditors come in and go through their records, but it's possible to do that remotely. So if you leave block 4 blank, like I said, so much of county government, so much of municipal government is the receipt and then the expenditure of funds. If you don't have any idea when the last audit of your accounts was, your accounting department on the municipal level, your town accountant, town or city accountant, or your city or town treasurer will be able to tell you what that date is. I would imagine people in procurement are fairly familiar with when they were last audited. So the last audit of accounts of this office, I get calls from fire departments, from public safety, boards of health, schools. They don't have any idea what that date is, but you just tell them, try your town accountant to be able to tell you. And then you're certifying that the records have not, they have reached their retention and they're not being audited or anything else. So print and type name, sign it, date it. So on the bottom, the example, those are personnel leave reports, 1.104. It's a 3-year record. You can tell you how old the form is. The form goes back to 2012, so it's 10 years old. But it hasn't really needed to be updated. So under the block, you've got your statutory citation, supervisor of public records, who works for Secretary Galvin, will sign that, signature stamp it, will date it. And if you send this, if you fill it out, it's PDF fillable. Print it out, sign it, scan it, and send it to the email address at the top, which is at rmu@sec.state.ma.us. We'll get that as a PDF attachment, and we would print it out and approve it and sign it, date it, and scan it and send it back to you, usually within 24 hours. So pretty quick turnaround. The scanned copies are held here permanently, and we recommend that you keep a copy permanently. Over the years, I've had a number of entities ask me, can you tell me the last time we applied for destruction? Which is not a good place to be, because you don't have any intellectual control of your records. You don't know when the last time you applied for destruction. You don't know who did it. You don't know what was destroyed. So a good idea to hang on to these permanently. Everyone here, hopefully at some point will not be working, so you retire and you leave your office kind of humming like a top, in the sense that everything is organized. You've destroyed the records which have reached the end of their retention. You have records of that. You've kept those permanently, and you can turn in effect the keys over to somebody and say, okay, these records here, they're reached the end of the retention at the end of the calendar year, or something along those lines. And you can apply to the supervisor through the secretary's office, through the records management unit, and put them in line for destruction. Most municipalities, certainly, I would imagine the county does as well, has a shredding company on contract, and they will come to your site and shred those records for you and give you a copy, so that you have, in effect, sort of closed the loop. So that's what the RMU-2 is, the application for destruction. If you go out of that, you can look at, so we back out of that. There are other forms. There's an application for microfilming. Believe it or not, people are still using microfilm. Some entities fill out the RMU-4, which is the records liaison officer. The records liaison officer is not the same as the records access officer, which is required by law, by the updated iteration of the public records law, which is now 5 years old. So records access officer and records liaison officer are not the same. People do submit the records liaison officer designation in some ways we keep a copy permanently, but it's it's also for their own benefit, so that someone is designated to basically fill out the forms and do records management. It's like safety, everyone is responsible for records management, but often you don't have a individual designated to be that records liaison officer. So the RMU 2E is the application for scanning and destruction. So this is optional, but several entities, municipalities, I mentioned building departments, police departments, town clerks, are submitting RMU 2Es. Now this is, if you open the form up, basically it's a record, permanent record for scanning and destruction. You don't have to submit it, but people do it for their own internal use. And they also do it because we scan and keep a copy here permanently. So this is a good way if you're familiar with building plans in the modern age, they can be like a foot around if they, big enough to choke a horse, if you will, poor horse. But the building department will scan and destroy the paper records, and they will keep the electronic records for however long the retention period is, often until the building is torn down in many cases. So life of the building, which can be, who knows, a long decades. So signature department head or authorized agent, signature of chief information officer. People get a little wrapped around the axle on that one. Often we get unintelligible scrawls, but basically it can be the same person. It can be, if you have a CIO, it'd be helpful to have that person sign off on it, because they are going to be keeping the records, hopefully uncorrupt and accessible for potentially a long, long time. So that's the 2E. So any questions on the application for scanning and destruction? Like I said, it's optional, but people do it because it is a permanent record to the proposer and permanent record to the approver. Okay, so we can go back and entertain some questions. If you want to go back to the municipal, the whole thing, there it is right there. And we can entertain some questions.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you for your assist on that. Nicely
Oh,
done.
of course. No worries. No worries. No worries
Appreciate
at
it.
all. Any questions?
I did see a hand raised
Earlier. Yeah, that might have come back down.
Okay.
Oh, Jill. You are muted, so you will have to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not sure, I've spoken with John a couple of times over the years when we were scanning our personnel records, and I'm pretty sure we did the 2R version, not the 2RE, and I'm still not really getting the succinct difference between the two. Because when we did the 2R, we had a company come in, scanned our personnel files, then we destroyed them through a scanning company.
Right.
I mean, a destruction company. So now they are all scanned in the computer, and you signed off on the form, and we sent it back, and we have it in a forever drawer. But I'm not really sure getting the difference between the 2R and the 2RE.
Okay. So the distinction between the RMU2 is you are looking to destroy those records upon receipt. The RMU2E means you're going to destroy the paper and keep the records electronically till they reach the end of their retention. So personnel records are the ominously 20 years after termination, which basically means you leave county service. So here we are in 22. So those records, if you were to retire today and scan your personnel record, those records would not be eligible for destruction until 2042. So you would not submit a 2 because you're not looking to destroy them. You're only going on the record saying that you're scanning them. In 2042, someone else will hopefully, unless you're still there, that would be pretty outstanding. Then you would submit an RMU2, an application for destruction for personnel records, because they have reached the end of their retention, 20 years of past termination.
And the 2E?
So that would be the 2E you could do today if you wanted to scan the records now. So you want to keep the records electronic.
That must be what we did, because you guided me and we,
Right.
you signed off on it. So it must have been the 2E, because we did agree that they could be destroyed because they were being kept scanned. They're
Yes.
electronic files now. So they are meeting the record retention in that sense, correct?
Right. So yes, it is optional, as I mentioned. And so you have to be kind of proactive, because it's generally done for retentions which are really long. In some cases, actually, they're doing permanent records which are not allowed to destroy anyway. But what you're saying is, for instance, off the top of my head, meeting minutes are permanent records under Chapter 30A of the general laws. But you say, okay, I've got meeting minutes which go back to 1950, and they're taking up, tremendous amount of space, and no one's ever going to go into those unless who knows why. So what we'd like to do is take advantage of technology and scan our meeting minutes and keep them electronically and just get rid of the paper. So it's sort of a cost benefit for us because we can shred the paper once. We don't need to keep them anymore, and we have those electronically. They're accessible, they're secure. If anybody needs them, be able to provide an electronic copy for them, and we're in good shape as far as that goes. So it's beneficial from a fiscal sense in that you don't have boxes taking up space in your workspace, if you will.
All right, thank you.
So the 2E and the 2.
Very good, thank
Other
you.
questions?
Thanks, Jill. Any other questions? Well, I will share John's information after the meeting, so that way if anything comes up, just want to double check. Okay. That way if anything comes up or if you have any additional questions and want to reach out to him, we could always do so that way as well. So, but thanks again. Thank you so much for joining us today and for going over that. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And like Ms. Frady says, I'm available by telephone. If you actually go to the records management unit link, it'll take you to the telephone number. So, yeah. And my extension is it's 727-2816, extension 260. My name is John Warner. I work for Secretary Galvin, so my email address is john.warner, john.warner@sec.state.ma.us, sec.state. Okay, thanks for having me, and have a wonderful meeting and a wonderful rest of the day.
Great, appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care, everyone.
Hey. All right, so I'm just heading back to the agenda. Okay. So of course, I'll obviously share his information in case you didn't get to write down his email address and phone number. So no worries on that. So the next thing on the agenda, I'm hoping that I'm sharing the right screen. I should be. Yes. Okay. So next thing on the agenda, I'm gonna keep this on the agenda until I finally find someone to fill this position of the speakers. So essentially it would be, someone from our wonderful membership that would want to step up and take over the speaker committee, which is essentially just coordinating exactly what, I recently did with John and finding topics and things that are relevant to procurement, and kind of coordinating with them, and setting up future meetings and presentations. So I figured I would at least see if there are any volunteers or nominations, if anyone that would like to fill that position. I'm looking for help because right now I'm doing it as per the bylaws until that position's filled. So I could really use the assistance, but no pressure. Everyone's still muted, by the way, so if anyone's speaking at the moment, okay, so moving on. So the next thing that I did want to introduce, this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you do receive the newsletter that I put together, and I think right now, and even as you see with, I've just followed kind of past practices of CAPPO, and it was always either the Barnstable County logo and information, because it was basically whoever was president at the time. I think Joanna, when she was in the town of Barnstable, when she was president for that period of time, it was on, the town of Barnstable's letterhead. So I was thinking, and especially since I'm also a member of MAPPO, why not have kind of our own logo, so that way it can kind of, separate itself, still be part of the county, of course, but kind of separate itself just from Barnstable County regional government. So I did come up with a quick design for comments, thoughts, and of course, now I just need to find it so that I can show you what I came up with. But this way, I figured it would just be, I guess, a little bit more inclusive. If that makes any sense. So. Okay, so this is what I came up with. Let me share that screen. And again, let me know your thoughts. I did want to take a vote on it today, if it's acceptable, or, if everyone hates it, we can, come up with something better. But
Jen, it's Amber Patterson, and I really think it's great, and what a great idea going forward to really kind of make it our own organization, because it has grown over the years. So
it has.
Yeah. I would certainly vote to approve this.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Yes, I'll bring forward a motion to approve the CAPPO logo designed by Jennifer Freed.
do I have a second? Anyone? I have a motion on the floor. Would anyone like to second? Everyone's muted, so you might have to unmute yourself.
I'll second.
Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, all those in favor, can either raise your hand, say in the chat if there's any. Awesome. All right, great. We now have a logo that I can use on our on our newsletters and make it look a little bit more professional. So thanks, guys. I'll also update the CAPPO website. So I'm pretty excited to get this one done. This one was one of those back burner projects that I didn't have much time to work on. I'm like, we're doing this. We're just gonna get this done. All right, so the next thing, which you did receive a copy of, is the bylaws revisions. I believe I have, hold on, I believe the version that I sent over was the one with the track changes, so that way you can see exactly what was changed, or at least what I was proposing. And it was just mostly because, again, the group has grown, it's evolved. So I figured it kind of had to be updated a little bit. Particularly, hold on if I can go into it. It is going to look a little bit messy because I do have, again, I have those track changes, but just so that way it's visible. Okay. So of course, you know, the first thing is making the change to the officers and who we have currently now with their information. So I'll double check that information and make sure that I have, you know, Kathleen and Michaela's correct info and telephone numbers and everything. So then, you know, I noticed that there were some on the bylaws. We were the Cape Cod Public Purchasing Officials Association, but I've been going as CCAPPO, I think, ever since I started. So I'm not sure if that was changed along the way. Maybe somebody can give me a history on that, but I was like, all right, we need to kind of fix that because I've been going always as CCAPPO. So I wanted to make sure that that kind of reflected that. I think the other change that I made for the secretary, preparing the issuing of notices and monthly meetings, coordinate attendance of monthly meetings, and maintain active status file membership. I removed all that because that's all currently done automatically and electronically. So as you may know, on the CCAPPO website, there's a sign-up sheet. And anyone who doesn't want to be part of CCAPPO can simply unsubscribe when they receive the notifications and the newsletters and stuff. So that would maintain an active file on its own. And then, you know, the attendance we have through Microsoft Forms, which, by the way, I'm not sure if you got my announcement earlier. I did put a link in the chat. I can put it again if needed, just to make sure that you sign in and get credit for attending today's meeting. I think the other the other thing I took out is, you know, as far as like the order of business that has changed and evolved so much over the years, I didn't think it was, you know, necessary, but I can certainly keep that back in. And I think that was it. So, I don't know if we want to have any sort of discussion. Anybody have any questions on my proposed changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the changes.
Hi, Jen. Amber Patterson, and I will move to make a motion to accept the changes.
Thank you,
I'll
Amber.
second Michaela Mateva here.
Thank you so much. All right, so I have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome.
Can I just do one comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the revised January 2020, can that be
Yes.
updated to?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll make that change right now.
Thank you.
Also, Jen, my
So-
extension is 4741. This is Kathleen.
Oh, thank you. Extension.
It's not extension. Oh, sorry. Just
Oh.
see the 4742. Just change it to a 1.
Got it. Awesome.
Perfect.
All right, so once I'll accept all the changes, give it a nice cleaner look. Actually, maybe I'll do that right now. Okay, there's the clean version.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, so I will after this meeting, I'll update the bylaws on the CCAPPO website. Let me save that. Okay, we'll go back to our agenda. Awesome. Getting some stuff done today. I love it. All right. Okay. Wonderful. Sorry, too many screens, a lot of clicking around just to make sure I got everything. Okay, so the next thing is the county bid update for FY23. So I've recently completed the, for those who participated in it, the utility billing, printing and mailing. So the vendor that most towns and municipalities had no longer going to be providing that service. So in a bit of a scramble, we put together this RFP and it has been completed. All the contracts are uploaded into the purchasing website. So if you can still see my screen, I figured I'll just go through that quickly so that you can view. But if you go to contracts and then the countywide, I have the utility billing, printing, mailing for anyone that needs it. The copies of the executed contracts are there for your use. So the other thing, I figured I'd go over the schedule on what's coming up for 2013. So in the fall, everyone can still see my screen, right? So I should be on the purchasing page, and if you can't, just let me know. So we're going to be going out to bid this fall for golf course materials. We're going to have road-specific projects, the roadway construction, public works items, and roadway materials. We do have an option to renew, so I'm probably going to meet with all of our stakeholders on that to just double check that they do want to move forward. I haven't heard any complaints yet, so I just before I pull that trigger, I always like to check with everyone and make sure that we're still going to be exercising that option. The trades I open up on an annual basis to fill our trades directory, and then the porta potties I'll be going out to bid again for this fall. And then just to show what's kind of coming up in the spring, this has been what I've done for the past couple of years. So just that way everyone has, kind of an idea of when we go out to bid for particular commodities. And those, of course, I'll send out as time comes. So if you are participating in any of these bids, I'm going to be sending out a schedule soon, hopefully within like the first 2 weeks of October, so that we can meet for anyone that I have on those distribution lists to go over what's needed to go out to bid for this year, the specs and everything like that. If you do not receive an email from me, or if you just want to double check that you're on the distribution list, if you go to the CCAPPO page, this is also where you would sign up for any type of notifications. We have a sign up for news and updates. I think I went through this on the last meeting, but it's always just good to show you. So if, just fill out your information. I do have everybody from previous, so if you've been on the list before, you should still be on it now. If it's the end of October, if you haven't heard from me, then please be sure to reach out. But you can, check off whichever bids you want to be a part of, so that way any correspondence make sure to get to you. So the again, the CCAPPO newsletters, that's gonna come out here, and that'll give you all the information of all the bids. I always try and give a written update of what's going on too, especially for those that aren't able to attend the meetings. So but if there's a particular bid that you're interested in, please feel free to check that box off as you sign up. And then the other thing that I did want to mention, especially for FY23, just out of the recent bid that we did, is that especially as things start ramping up, and of course, as you know, I do the cooperative bids, but I also do have my own internal departments to take care of. So when I'm going to ask as nicely as I can. So when I have deadlines, I try and, give everybody more than enough time. I definitely like a couple of weeks out if I need information, if I need a response. I'm just going to ask that everybody be very mindful of that. I've had some instances where, you know, a couple of towns didn't get back to me in time, and then everybody is waiting for that one or two towns that, you know, waited until the last minute. So I am going to ask and really try and push these deadlines, and that way it doesn't delay kind of everything else that comes after. So I am going to ask, and I'll send this out by email because I'm sure I probably don't have one person from each town here. But I am looking for a town CPO list. So I know everyone here is, of course, you know, involved in procurement in some type of capacity. But I am looking to see and get kind of like a distribution list of your town CPOs. I ran into an instance where the CPO was unaware of something that, you know, the county was running for their town. And so I want to make sure that they're involved in the process or aware, you know, just to open up that line of communication with them. So I am going to be requesting through the newsletter. And everybody can just email me and just let me know, because I know sometimes it's the town administrator that has that role or has that delegation, that duty, and whatnot. So I just kind of want to make sure that I have, you know, a list of each town's CPO. And then for other business, I did want to share, and this will be quickly. I know we only have a couple minutes and I don't want to keep you too far over. So as some of you may know, I'm a member of MAPPO as well. And because I just love getting involved, I have, you know, all this free extra time on my hands. I'm part of a few of their subcommittees. So I thought it was, you know, important to kind of share some of the information that is coming out of those subcommittees. So one of them that I'm involved in is the legislative committee. So one of the things, I don't know if a lot of you have heard, I know I'm sure Amber is really happy about the latest bill that was passed, where schools are now able to go out for quotes up to 100,000, not municipalities. We're still, you know, everyone else is still at 50,000. But just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this change that's going to be in effect in November. And then the Inspector General's office is actually putting together some communication to help towns kind of deal with that. So if you're in a procurement role where the schools are a part of it in any way, I know it's going to get kind of confusing as far as, you know, joint procurements and everything. You do always have the option, we mentioned this at the last MAPPO meeting, you do always have the option of keeping everyone at 50,000. It can be, as long as it can't surpass the state laws, but it can always be restrictive depending on your own internal policy. So you can always set that up. But some of the things that we're still, as a legislative committee, we're pursuing is the RFP loophole. So right now, up to 50,000, you cannot go out for an RFP. So that's one thing that we're trying to change in the legislation. And then we're also pursuing advertising changes. So instead of, you know, spending the money and putting it into newspapers, having, you know, different avenues. Some people even feel that putting it in combis and in the central register of goods and services is kind of like a duplication of effort. So we're trying to kind of cut that a little bit and at the same time cut costs by not having to go into a newspaper. And I think that was it for now on other business. I'll open up the floor if anybody has any questions. Amber.
Just one question. The changes to 25A under energy, I'm not sure Map went over this. Does that start in November as well, that threshold increase?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it was all part of the same bill or the same rollout. They mentioned it briefly at this last meeting, but yeah, that change I think is going to be included. And again, the Inspector General's office is supposed to provide guidance on that as well. So, yep.
Okay, great. Thank you,
As
Jen.
far as I know, it's all November. No problem. Any questions? Anything that I didn't go over? Anyone wants to talk about? Any upcoming bids anybody needs help with? So of course, you always know where to reach me. I'll try and send out a quick, like I said, update or recap of today's meeting. And then at the next meeting, we already have booked and ready to go. We are going to have David Giannotti from the State Ethics Commission. He's going to be doing a presentation on conflict of interest. So this was one of the topics that our members had asked for. So I'm happy to have him on board for the next meeting. So that'll be great. So the next meeting is November 22nd. As of right now, we're still holding meetings remotely. I'll certainly, if people want to start getting into a hybrid, I'm happy to hear any feedback. If you want to start driving and go into meetings, that's no problem. Just got to let me know. See something in the chat.
Shannon?
Hi.
Hi, it's Kathleen. I just wanted to let you know, we'll need to find someone else to take the minutes for the next meeting, or are you going to record it? Because I'm not available that day.
Oh, definitely recording. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries at all. Yeah, no worries. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn, Michaela.
Thanks, Michaela. I'll take a second.
It's Amber Patterson. I second the motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Amber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi. All right, everyone, have a great day. Stop the recording now. So 11:04. Nope.